Welcome to the Maura Sweeney podcast. Maura is an international speaker, Huffington Post contributor, and the trademarked ambassador of happiness. In 10 minutes or less, Maura weaves clever anecdotes, insightful questions, and personal stories to challenge your mindsets and enable you to live happier from the inside out. Here's Maura with today's podcast for you.
Is it time to choose happiness? Well, if you're on a path to living happy from the inside out, today's question and today's podcast is not only for you, but I hope you will tune into it and listen again until it becomes a reality for you. Is it time for you to choose happiness? Now, you may think, what do you mean, choose happiness? Choosing happiness is exactly what this podcast is about, and it's also a very timely one. Happiness, most people think, is something that happens to us always and almost exclusively based on something out there, some circumstance that comes to us and visits upon us, rather than seeing happiness as a state of being, a constitution of the mind, and a choice as to the kind of person and the kind of world that we choose to live in. So let me start by giving a number of synonyms for the word happiness so you can identify with that, followed by a few of the antonyms so you can see the difference. Thirdly, what I will do, as always, is give you a little bit of a piece of my background and how I have had to choose happiness and how it makes a difference. And of course, at the end, we'll have a call to action and a friend from somewhere who's going to share with us what makes them happy from the inside out. Let's take a look now at the synonyms for the word happiness. And as we do, I want you to feel your way into them and identify with maybe sounds, memories, images that come to mind, and even more than that, the feelings associated with the state of happiness. And here we go. Cheer, bliss, contentment, delight, elation, ecstasy, enchantment, exhilaration, elation, exuberance, felicity, gaiety, gladness, glee, good cheer, good humor, good spirits, hilarity, hopefulness, joy, joviality, jubilation, laughter, lightheartedness, merriment, mirth, optimism, and one I love, paradise, peace of mind, playfulness, pleasure, prosperity, rejoicing, seventh heaven, vivacity, and well-being. How do those words make you feel? How do you relate to any of the images, any of the thoughts, any of the imaginations or memories that are associated with happiness? Let's take a look at the antonyms. Only a few of them came from thesaurus.com, but they are powerful indeed. Gloom, misery, pain, depression, sadness, sorrow, and woe. If happiness and the state of happiness puts us in a place of high spirits and satisfaction, then its opposite, the antonyms to happiness, is everything about low spirits, dissatisfaction, and I would even say a lack of hope. When I think about the antonyms to happiness, I'm brought back to maybe when I was around 11 years old or so, being at a funeral parlor where both my great-grandmother and her son were being laid out at the same time. I believe it was a 5-day event. And being in this place where all hope was not there, and death reigned. I never forgot that feeling. And I think that maybe it's probably punctuating the whole idea of what a lack of happiness is and why choosing happiness, choosing something else, choosing the opposite is so powerful for each one of us to do in our lives. I'm reminded also this morning, before doing this podcast, of a moment in time or a slice of time. It was when I was somewhere between 7th and 8th grade, let's say. I must have been going through a very challenging time. And this is what I was doing. I would, for several nights in a row, go into my grandfather's office. He had passed away, but we had lived in his home, and nobody used his office. So I had gone in, turned off all the lights. There was a record player there, and I had a Moody Blues album. Think about that, Moody Blues. And in the darkness, as I was lying on my grandfather's couch, I would play over and over this one song. Many of you will remember it. It was called Stairway to Heaven. I think it was some story, some ballad about a woman or a person who was literally planning for their death. And in that time of my life, I felt like death. I could not see forward to expansion, brightness, happiness, joy, youthful exuberance. I literally did not see it. I couldn't see forward to it. And I will tell you this, at some level, at my age, I felt like I was living in blackness, in sorrow, and with a lack of hope. But after about 2, maybe 3 nights of going into this office, after I either finished my homework or whatever it was that I was doing, I remember thinking to myself, you know what? This is not going to help me, and I don't even want to be in this place listening to music that is so incredibly depressing. And I remember thinking, gosh, I have so many years to get through before I will be an adult, where I can self-actualize, where I can maybe do what I want to do, or go where I want to go, or make a life I want to make. I couldn't even imagine. When you're 14 or 13, adulthood seems like forever away. But I remember making a decision internally to get up off the couch, to turn on the light in that darkened room, to turn off that music, and to keep myself busy and occupied and planning for a future that I could say was my own. It was almost like I was taking back authority that I felt like I didn't have. It was owning myself, owning my emotions, and choosing something other than something I was living in and didn't like, even though I felt like my joy might be delayed to some future time. But I made the decision. Frankly, I have made that decision many times over. And for those of you who might have seen me or watched me as I've done some of my public speaking, I've actually used 1 or 2 older pictures from my very early years. And to this day, you could look at those photos and you could feel the heaviness that came from the sadness I carried as a young person. But also for those who know me today, they probably look at me and feel coming from me something completely different. So much different from my early years that I think some people think, oh, Maura, she's always been happy, sunlight, and butterflies. They don't realize that where I am today came from a multitude of choices that said, I will choose happiness. I will choose to be a beneficiary in this lifetime. And I'm so happy to say that now I have various platforms where I can help convey some of those life messages and even life lessons I've experienced so that other people could get to happiness sooner than it took for me to get to mine. So I don't know where you are today. Maybe you are feeling like that victim. Maybe you are looking at the outside world, to authorities, experts, institutions, maybe to some of your relatives, a job you hold, a peer group you belong to, circumstances, something out there that has disappointed you, deprived you, and even worse, maybe even betrayed you. All of that is a victim mentality and mindset where the world happens to you. But I'm here to tell you, you can choose happiness today. You can choose to be a beneficiary in a benevolent world. Well, that's been my thought for you, but let's hold on because there's someone else who wants to share with us what makes them happy from the inside out too. This has been Maura with More For You.
Hi, this is Mona. I'm originally from Germany and I moved to Michigan like around 20 years ago. Have 4 teenage girls and, well, that's the first thing which makes me really happy. They're wonderful. Well, as probably every mom says. I really like to travel, and that got me into thinking like, well, how can I travel? How can I explore more places? So I just applied for a flight attendant job. And so far I'm still in the running, so I'm super excited. And of course I'm also very nervous, but the second thing I really like is people, and that's another thing with a flight attendant job. I like to meet new people, and I'm just right now in Florida visiting a friend, and I met some wonderful people here, and especially Maura, I really like her. So people, traveling, being not living in a box, just being out there and getting to know new things, new cultures, that's what really makes me happy.
For more insights on living happy from the inside out, subscribe to this podcast. To learn more about Maura, visit her moraforyou.com website, where you'll find videos, blogs, books, and the Foundations of Happiness self-study e-course. Maura, 4, letter U.com, where Maura is always for you.